what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Copy Blogger podcast. I am still in my humble office, and Ethan is still traveling the world, being in some kind of 5-star hotel. What are you at, the Hamptons?
Sort of, yeah. It's called the Edgewood,
Cool.
and it is definitely the fanciest place I've ever been. Can we talk about it for a second?
Sure. Like, tell me about this 5-star resort that you're in.
So for people listening, like it's very nice. Probably the fanciest hotel that's ever let me in. There's a fireplace like right next to me, which is pretty cool. I didn't know they were allowed to put fireplaces in hotels. And it's great. It's the food's been wonderful, the experience has been wonderful. But I'll tell you what, there's one thing that I don't think is very obvious to people from the outside when you look at an experience like this. Some of it's a giant pain in the ass, man. Like they have so we're on this beautiful property, but the only thing that they allow is valet parking. And I have like a huge van with all my stuff in it. So it's just very difficult to kind of interact with valets to do that. And also I feel a little bit uncomfortable asking people to do stuff for me too. And it feels like the entire experience is really built around that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I have this thing that I call the 3X rule, which is typically how I pick where I stay when I travel. And what I basically do is look up the absolute cheapest accommodation you can find in a spot. It's usually like a hostel. And then I'll pay up to 3 times the nightly price of whatever that is. And that seems to be the sweet spot of where like you get kind of the best experience for your money, but you don't cross over into that weird super high-end experience that almost becomes low end again. Like I learned this in Paris too. I was in Paris for like a week and couldn't get a room anywhere. So I stayed in a hostel for like the first 6 nights that I was there. Finally, an Airbnb opened up nearby. And so I booked the Airbnb, and it was a great experience. It was like a little studio apartment in this great little local neighborhood, right above a coffee shop. Basically everything everybody wants to experience when they go to Paris. The very last night I booked myself in a 5-star resort because I found like just a great deal on it. And I get there and it's wonderful. It's beautiful. But it's like there's a certain point of like quality or like what's the word? Premier, where all of a sudden it kind of comes back around. So as an example, at that resort I ordered a salad, and instead of like a salad, they brought a thing of lettuce that had been sliced in half and placed on a cutting board with like croutons to the side and like a knife and like a tomato. And I was like, wait a second, I gotta make my own goddamn salad. Like this it's like there's fanciness, there's a bell curve of fanciness, and then you go beyond a certain point and it's just back to like, well, you're gonna make the salad yourself.
It's like driving a Lamborghini on a normal road. Like, what am I doing with this car? This is ridiculous. Give me a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah. So that was the genesis of the 3X rule. That Airbnb was about 3 times the cost of the hostel, and it was like everything you want, great experience. And then beyond that, you start to get kind of like back into you're just kind of paying for something. At least that's been my experience so far. So the 3X rule. So anyways, very nice hotel. It's beautiful. I am learning how to go through these experiences, but zero complaints. Yeah, the goods outweigh the bads.
Cool. Well, I love it, man. I hope you're having a great time. When you're done, you'll have to tell me all about your adventure over the last week or two. But yeah, man, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, you've been hitting me up the last couple of days saying you found something really cool that you want to talk about this week. So
yeah, it is so simple. And you know how much I like really simple, well thought out, like opportunistic ideas. And I found something that I think just totally matches that. And I'm going to start it with a little bit of a story. I've had my brand, timstods.com, for a long time. And over the last 2 years, as you know, especially as I've been growing my Twitter and my LinkedIn and stuff like that, I'm actually growing a pretty decent sized email list. And there's like a very small but significant enough amount of people who are paying attention to me to the point where I get leads about coaching, or how could you help me, or could I hire you? And it's right at that point where it seems like a big enough opportunity that I could take advantage of it, but just too much of a pain in the ass for me to actually do it. So here's what I have landed on in terms of me and my brand. Basically, I am all in on the front end, or the free product, which is my newsletter. And I'm all in on my front end product, which is just Copyblogger Academy. So I told you about this, right? Like I combined everything that I have into one. So Copyblogger and Tim Stodds are both selling memberships to the Academy. But my back end service has always, or my back end product, my high end product, I've always just defaulted to agency work. When it pertains to Tim Stodds, though, this is what's weird about it, because the people that follow me on my brand, they're not businesses, they're just regular folks, just regular people that are maybe trying to create a blog, or build some kind of media around an idea they have, stuff that you and I talk about. So it's different with Copyblogger, because the back-end service for Copyblogger is obviously just driving leads to digitalcommerce.com. But those are big companies, it's $8,000 to $10,000 deals a month, probably once a month. We'll probably like we closed 3 deals the last 30 days, which has been really fucking sick. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like an everyday new deal, new deal, new deal. So you can pick and choose with that, because the dollar amounts are big enough, and the workload is big enough that you can't take it all at once. Like, you have to be selective. And so with Tim Stodds, it's always just been this little like thorn in my brain, because I feel like I'm missing out on something, since I get so many leads and so many inquiries. But at the same time, like, in order to actually do it, the only reasonable service I could provide would be coaching. Sounds great, right? It's not. I'm not a good coach. I am a terrible, terrible coach. Not because I don't care, and not because I am a bad communicator. I'm just very impatient, and I'm very selfish. Like, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And the few times that I've actually had coaching clients, I just immediately started resenting it, because I have to be somewhere and jump on a Zoom call with somebody who paid me, and like, I owe it to them. It's not their fault. It's totally my fault. I've only done 2 coaching deals ever. And both times I was just like, this isn't fair to them. This isn't fair to me. I hate doing this. I'm never doing it again. So I haven't. And I've just stuck with the newsletter and with the Academy. And I always said to myself, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to think about it too hard. All right. You with me so far?
Yeah.
All
Can I
right,
ask
cool.
one quick question?
Yeah, please.
What were the coaching clients getting coaching on? Is it how to build a lead gen service, or how to write, or what was the actual topic?
Mostly autoresponders. So the 2 people I've worked with, one was a really high-end personal trainer in Dubai, actually, and he was great. It was one of those FOMO things where I felt like I was costing myself a real potential opportunity by not really working with this guy, because he was just so good. He was so high end, and he like really knew his brand. He really knew his customer. He knew what he was doing. He had plenty of clients. He wanted to automate it. Like, he was in the same spot where he was doing all of the stuff himself. And so I really, really wanted to work with him. And then there was another just kind of basic media guy. It was a designer, to be specific. It was a website designer who was trying to templatize his service so that he would pick an industry and be able to do it over and over again. And so it wasn't necessarily the same thing every time, but it was sales. Like, that's ultimately what it seemed like people were reaching out to me for. It was like online direct response sales through email and landing pages. Okay, anyway, so we'll put a lid on that, on the context. And I'm going to tell you about this last week. I had Justin Moore from Creator Wizard. He did a presentation for Copyblogger Academy. First off, let me just say that his presentation was so pro, it made me feel like a total rookie. He had like all the buttons and the sound effects, and like his whole pitch was totally done. And I just kind of make things up as I go along, you know what I mean? So Justin did like a really amazing job. And then afterwards, we started talking on Twitter. And this is where it gets good. So I'm going to share my screen for people just listening to the audio. I will be sure to, explain it. But he sends me this DM about wanting to talk about like learning more about lead generation, and he showed me his sales page for his personal coaching. And here we are. You ever hear of volley?
No.
All right. This is so freaking smart. What I'm gonna do, I can explain it, but they made like a really great commercial. I hope that they don't like take us down on YouTube if I just play this, but here, I'm just gonna play it, and I'm gonna put the volume up as loud as I can, because I think the volume has to go like out of my speakers and into the microphone. I don't think it goes directly through.
Hold on one sec. You can actually make it go straight through if you stop your screen share.
Okay.
And then when you restart screen share, it'll ask you to pick which screen you want to share. In the bottom left-hand corner, there'll be something for share audio as well.
Oh my God, no way. Share sound?
Yep.
Oh my God, you are the man, Ethan. All right, so I'm just gonna play this video. And first off, like, look how ridiculously handsome this dude is. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this guy could sell anything.
Volley, what is it? How does it work? How about I just show you instead of tell you? I'll be the consultant and Josh will be the client.
I'm going to purchase Mitch's 5-minute studio makeover offer and create my account, enter my payment details, and I'm in. I see the 5-minute studio makeover conversation here, and I'll send the first volley. Hey Mitch, I'm ready for my 5-minute studio makeover. Now notice the timer is counting down the time here. This is what happens in a time limited offer like I chose. Okay, now let's send this volley.
Got it. As I watch Josh's volley back, I can play it up to 1.5x, 2x speed, skip forward, back, and react. I'll send a volley back. Hey Josh, it looks like we've got some work to do on your studio. I'll start coaching, and on the conversation continues. Like texting, we send volleys back and forth when we have time. A volley can be a video or an audio message, which subtracts time based on their length, or a text message that subtracts time based on estimated read time. You can also share files, images, and docs which don't count against time. And if you purchase a monthly recurring subscription, it's an open and on-demand conversation, so time isn't tracked.
And when the time is up, I can still view the conversation, I just can't send volleys. I can choose to extend or purchase this offer again if I want. When I do, it adds time back on the clock.
See? Super easy, right? We have apps for iOS, Android, Mac, and PC, so you can volley with your coach from anywhere, anytime.
Dude.
It's a consultant in your pocket, the fastest way to access expertise.
So cool.
How dope is that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, like when you say it, it sounds so simple. Asynchronous consulting and coaching. And if somebody were telling me that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, we could go back and forth with Loom videos and probably send emails back and forth to each other and maybe have a Slack channel or whatever. But they designed the UX to make it so that it's basically a text message that volleys back and forth. And what a great name, by the way. Like when you hear the word volley, you can visualize it. And so they just volley these video messages back and forth to each other so that your coaching or your consulting services or products, you could almost consider it, are async and are on your time and don't require two people to be at the same place at the same time to talk about a specific thing.
My God, I love this. I love this because I've had so many problems with consulting and coaching for exactly this reason, where it's like,
Yep.
I'm hesitant to do it because I know in the past I'll like overcommit, and a client, like, they always have good intentions, but it's always just one more thing, one more thing. I love the time tracking feature on this. And I think, I mean, you can see how this could be applied to so many different industries, not just coaching, but like there's certain types of agency work, right? Where people prepay for X number of hours of creative direction or something per month. I think it'd be really cool to see a version of this potentially for writers too. I'm not sure if it would be time, but I love how there's pressure on the client to keep things moving forward,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
but not to go over whatever the commitment is on your time. This reminds me of I'm glad you shared this, because I've been thinking through like a potential next step business model for when I feel like going out on my own. I'm at a point right now where people get in touch pretty often asking if I consult on newsletters. And I've always said no, for exactly the reasons that we're talking about right now. I save time for free calls where I'll just sit down and have chats with people. But the reason I do that is because I feel very comfortable saying, like, look, you have 30 minutes of my time. I'm happy to help with anything I can. And then after that, that's it.
yeah.
I was talking to this guy. His name's Adam Lawrence. He's the founder of a company called Boom and Bucket. And before that, he was COO at Bolt. Are you familiar with Bolt?
Yeah,
Like
of course.
payment processor.
Mhm.
When he left there, he did a whole bunch of consulting on like operations. And I was telling him about this and how I've been kind of thinking through the model. And he goes, well, here's like roughly what I did. People get in touch and they ask if, wait, let me make sure I don't cross his story with somebody else. Yeah, okay. So he goes, people would get in touch and they would try and consult. And I would say, yes, I have a consultation fee. It's $15,000 a month. And I'm not going to do any of the work, but I will spend Monday afternoons with your team. So like 3 to 4 hours on every Monday, and you can line up whatever calls you want. Those 3 to 4 hours are your time. And then I think there may have been some email support as well. And where he ended up, people probably hear that figure like 15 grand and they're like, no way, come on, for 4 hours a week. Well, first of all, he had like an incredibly valuable skill set, but also didn't necessarily end up selling at 15K. Instead, people would negotiate down and then there'd be some sort of like advisor shares in the company that he would get for the remainder of that money.
Nice.
And so ever since he laid it out like that simply, like you don't have to do the thing for your client. You can just say, hey, I'm going to sit down with your team. This is your time, and I'll tell you how to do everything. I'll answer any questions you can, or any questions I can, but I'm not going to do it. To me, that is much more appealing as a potential next step. But the time component, the time component was still a hang up for me, and this totally solves that. I think this is so cool.
For sure. It sounds like I mean, I don't want to make it seem like it's a little bit of money or a lot of money, right? Because at first you say $15,000 a month and it's like 3 to 4 hours once a week. And then all of a sudden I start doing the math and I'm like, okay, that's 16 hours. So however much over a month, you're basically making like $600-700 an hour. And that's a great living. That's a ton of money. You know, don't get me wrong. I have been kind of doing this long enough to know that even $700 an hour, like you lose all the leverage and your time gets owned. And it really is true. I am totally a believer that like money can buy happiness. I don't know whoever came up with the crazy thing that like money doesn't buy happiness. It's complete lunacy. I'm way happier now that I'm financially stable than when I was like below the poverty line, right? It's completely wrong. But there is a limit. Like once your needs are met and all of that, there's like a limit, you know, there's a ceiling on it.
Yeah.
And so you think to yourself, okay, $700 an hour, that'll make me happy. But the time that you're going to lose with that could very, very easily, I'll speak for myself, that would make me miserable. Sitting in an office for 3 to 4 hours with people asking me questions all day, nonstop, and just how impatient I am, I'm going to be like, look, I already told you the answer. Like, you're not listening to me. And I'll just get fed up and frustrated. And so like my quality of life would definitely come down. But with like this ability, it's all ping back and forth with like absolute flexibility. I could be hiking up a mountain with my wife, which we do every weekend. Now that I'm in Denver, is I go, hey, 1 second, let me send this volley right back. And the client, it doesn't matter to them. They get the same amount of value. Like, sure, they might not get the instantaneous demand on my time and attention, but
Right.
that's fine. Who cares? They get the same amount of value. And honestly, there's just as much a likelihood of a client not showing up to the designated time and then being like, oh, I'm sorry, I had this emergency, which is always an emergency. And I'm frustrated. They're frustrated. They're not getting their money's worth. They might even ask me for a refund. Whereas this just takes the constraints out of both parties.
Yeah, I love that. And if like there is some value lost from not having the immediacy of face-to-face contact, you price that in, and that's it. It's that simple.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think that's another thing that I think through when I think about consulting is it's similar to agencies. It's like a cool way to make money quick.
Yeah.
But it's like a middle ground while you're building a product or something that's going to give you more leverage. I don't think I would ever want consulting to be like a long-term. I feel like consulting for me is what you come back to whenever you're making pivots in your career. It's like what carries you through so that you can go create the product that's going to have infinite leverage or something like that.
Yeah, I get that. For me, consulting seems like a thing that I do in my spare time.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't know because I've never done it. But yeah, it just seems like something where if I have like half of my week booked out and the other half of the week is just sort of sitting around, then like I could fit coaching within that time frame.
It's like the Uber of knowledge work.
Yes, exactly. It's like DoorDash, but for online marketing. All right, well, hold on. Let me dig into this a little bit deeper. I'm gonna share my screen again because even though we're going back and forth about like the concept, I also think they did a really great job with the design of this product. So I'm on the website. volley.app.com is the website where you can basically find all of the products and the features. The product itself is volley.app, which it has to be because like it's going to be a totally different code base to actually run the app. But like the business website is volley.app.com. So I'm going to hover over this product, and you have the ability to create a membership program. Excuse me, I'm going to hover over the product tab on the website. And so now I have 3 different drop downs. So you can create a membership program, which is the same idea. You can just have more than one person in like your group, I suppose, your whatever you call it, your volley group at the same time. You can have this one-on-one, the consult with me, and you can have the pro. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. I haven't really gone through the website all that much, but what I was looking for is actually the back end. And so if you go to volley.app, it's going to be pretty blank for the people watching on the video, but you can see the functionality of it is great. So on this left sidebar, this is basically all of the people that you work with. And you have all of your volleys basically on a timeline right here. So this is a sample. It just says hello volley. And you can see exactly how it displays. Oh, it's so fucking good, man. Like this is so good. So this is a volley. And then this is basically like the response to a volley. And then you can have all of your clients in this this sidebar, I guess you could call it. And like, that's it. There's nothing else to it. The simplicity of it, I think, is brilliant. The idea is brilliant. And I think these guys, oh, and here's the other really, really great part, which I think is super smart. Guess how much it costs?
How much?
Free. It's 5%. 5% on your sales.
That is smart.
So smart. Yeah, it's how you know that these guys have actual conviction in their product, because they're putting all of the risk, that they're removing all of the risk from the actual execution of it. And even 5%, like Substack is 10. And people are lining up to use Substack. And even though I see 10%, I'm like, you guys are crazy. You know, you could use ConvertKit for $30 a month. What are you doing? But this is straight 5%.
You mentioned something interesting there in terms of like de-risking this, which I think ties into the episode that we did last week about the value equation
Yeah,
and that whole concept of like certainty of outcome. What you're saying is like the way they've set it up is I am certain that I'm going to make money from consulting before I pay for this, which is kind of cool. That's
yeah,
actually one thing that we didn't really talk through last week, was how to de-risk offers, right? Because like I think we did a good job of covering some stuff on here's how you identify value and build it and stack it. But as I was listening to the episode again, and you and I were like loosely in touch about this, there were only the two things that stood out to me. One, which we've already talked about via text, is like, I think you could charge a lot more for some of the things that you're charging for.
Thanks.
And the other was this concept of like de-risking, because I feel like that is where you really hook people and get them to say yes to something. So it seems like Volley is doing that in a smart way. That's kind of like a smart SaaS play in general. It's just,
Totally.
what would that be? It's not usage-based pricing. It's more like rev share.
Yeah, exactly. Like a 5% rev share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that at all since last week? In terms of like how you're de-risking some of the offers that you're working on?
Yes, I have. And cool that we're bringing it up, because this was actually something when we stopped recording, there was another part of the book that was very important that we didn't talk about. And we have a perfect example here with Volley, and it's the de-risk, or as he calls it in the book, it's the guarantee. You know, what can you guarantee? I'm going through this a little bit with my partners, because it's not something that I can definitely just make the call on by myself. But I think where we're going to land is you can cancel your contract at any time. So there's no contract, basically. Like, we'll have a service agreement so that it's written as to what the expectations of the work is and like what we're going for, just so it'll help me with any confusions about like, well, I thought I was getting this, I thought I was getting this, you know, like, so we'll still have a service agreement so that the expectations are perfectly clear. But that's what I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning towards like, that is maximum conviction in me, almost exactly like Volley, like me being able to provide what it is that I say I can provide. This is my guarantee to you. You can cancel at any time. No holds bars, no cancellation fee, no time limit on a binding contract, no nothing. You pay your invoice and then we'll work for another month. We'll see where it goes, but that's where I'm leaning.
Have you guys fielded that offer at all yet? Or is it still kind of in the last stages of getting buttoned down?
Yeah, yeah, we fielded it, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I shouldn't have even asked. Like, I should have known within 5 days of you having it on paper, it would be out in the wild.
I wish I could share it, actually. I'm like pretty open on this podcast about what I'm working on. I can't share the document. But basically, I turned our proposal into what I'm calling a roadmap. And I just sent one, it was 14 pages long. And with the part of the reason why it was so long is because 2 of those pages was listing out the offers and the benefits of them, and like talking about what the value of each one of those were. And then, you know, at the bottom, I added it all up and I did this is a $35,000 a month value, and we're only quoting whatever this much. But the way I figured is like, what if I just turned my proposals into sales letters? You know, like, what if it was just a sales letter where I've researched everything ahead of time and I say like, this is exactly what you can expect. This is exactly what we're going to do. This is like a basic time frame that we can put around it. And I even have like a disclaimer around it, just because you can never totally get the time frame right, like shit happens. But yeah, we vetted it and I sent the contract out this morning. And actually, like, while we've been recording this podcast, I keep sneakily refreshing my email on my phone to see if I got the signature back.
You can't stop, won't stop, man.
Can't fucking stop, dude.
Awesome, dude. Well, I'm glad for you. You got to keep us in the loop on how that goes.
I will.
Do you feel like that exercise has fundamentally changed anything about the way you're approaching your business moving forward? I mean, I know the offer is different, but what stuck out to me is like it felt like that exercise that Hormozy walks people through is super concrete, and I don't feel like I have a lot of very concrete exercises to fall back on when it comes to
Yeah.
like developing important assets in a company. Like a product is one thing. There's this great book called The Business Model Canvas. You've probably
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brilliant. I have it. That book is really cool because you can like quite literally visualize all the aspects and then put like post-it notes on your wall or whatever. Where the fuck is that book? I have it right in front of me.
Yeah, for people listening who haven't seen it, it sort of lays out this visual map of value creation inside of a business model. And once you read it, you kind of know what pieces are missing. And so it becomes easier to think of businesses that are like have a higher likelihood of being viable
Yeah.
because you can just sort of plug and play your way through this model. And if you check all the boxes, like you've got a high likelihood of something with legs. And the more times I am asked to consult on stuff like this, the more I value exercises like that, because it's one thing to kind of hustle your way through in a company that you're working on, but to be able to make success repeatable and like package it up and hand it to somebody else, you really need those types of frameworks and exercises. So that's a good one for business model creation. Hormozy's is good for product. Then there's another one that I really like for events, and I think it's just called the Event Canvas. Wait, you're holding the business model book right now, right?
Yeah,
What's the
I am right
title on
now.
that?
There's a lot of visuals of the actual canvas itself. And so I'm gonna put it up to the screen. One of the cool things that the book does is here's the book right away.
Business model generation. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah,
The other one is called the Event Canvas. And
got it.
it does almost the exact same thing, but for like planning life-changing events for people. It gives a very clear framework on how to work through that planning process and come up with something that's like really high likelihood of success.
Yeah, very cool. Two things about this book that I really like, Business Model Generation. One is it feels good. And I mean that like physically. It's fun to read and flip through. It's kind of like a combination of a business book and like a coffee table book, like you can sort of flip through it and like enjoy it. But the other aspect of it is the canvas itself. They bring you through it in a very chronological, visible nature. So you start with one section of the canvas, and then it's almost like a person walking through a path where they like visualize it with graphics and all of that. So that's really cool. So anyway, here it is, business model generation. And then another note on that, which I think is important with frameworks. I was listening to Tim Ferriss this weekend, and he had Bill Gurley on,
I
and
loved that episode.
yeah, where he talked about like the frameworks of just creating infrastructure within a company, and I thought that was so insightful.
Wait, tell me more about that, because that wasn't really what I keyed in on for that one. For Bill Gurley, I really loved how he was basically early to like what Trends was doing,
Yeah,
So there were so many cool resources in that episode where they shared books and newsletters and all kinds of stuff for people who are interested in deconstructing businesses and understanding their like competitive advantages or
exactly.
their business models. But I don't think I remember the part that you're talking about. What do they say?
Well, it was very subtle. He didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I don't remember the name of the book. Towards the beginning of the episode, he mentioned a book that he says is basically the most valuable part of like macroeconomist PhDs, where it's just this like,
Those first 3 chapters, right?
yeah, those first
yeah,
two
yeah.
chapters. Well, I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. He mentioned the book a few times. And then because it's Tim Ferriss, he says like, what other books have helped you out? And so we started listing books, and he listed a book where he says, it's a little bit dry, but I think it's one of the most important things to read because so many entrepreneurs just kind of go into it like, yeah, I'll just do the next thing. I'll just like keep going at it. I'll keep going at it. Whereas
Yep.
like, but having a foundational framework is really important. Like how do you structure your management team? How do you structure just a simple profit and loss sheet? And most people don't even know how to read a profit and loss sheet.
Yep.
Nonetheless, like young entrepreneurs that are trying to get a couple $1 million worth of funding, right? How do you structure just simple stuff like time at the office? What does the flow of people around your office look like? And it just really hit home to me because that's you paid me a really good compliment last week, and I really appreciate it. But I've always been the type of person to like hear something, recognize that it's something that I can use and I don't currently know, and then like implement it. And I think frameworks are just one of the easiest ways for people that have no idea what they're doing, like most of us, to implement something that'll just instantly level them up higher than their competition.
I had forgotten that that was one of the major points of that interview. Not only like how to read P&Ls, but also I think more broadly, he was saying a lot of founders sort of poo-poo
Sure.
MBAs
Yeah,
in
for sure.
advanced degrees. Yeah, business degree. And he goes, but the reality is that a business degree would only ever help a founder, right? Which I thought was a really interesting statement. He was such a cool guy. I just liked, I liked just listening to his voice. He just sounded, because he was so smart, but so
He's got the
approachable.
best voice.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a great interview. Um, is there anything else that you think you wanted to dig in on related to any of these, like
Nope.
consulting or books
Nope.
or Tim Ferriss episodes?
No, I was just so thrilled to find that app. I guess we could wrap this thing up with one little caveat. I still don't think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. I'm really in a great point in my life right now where I'm chilling, like I got the things that I'm excited about, and I think I'm like just getting older and a little bit more mature to the point where I'm actually just okay with like maybe that's never gonna be something for me, right?
Mhm.
Where, like when I was younger and a little bit more like piss and vinegar, I was like, no, I need that, I need that, I need that, I need to do this just because I can to prove to myself that I can, right? Um, I'm not there, but I'm not ruling it out either. Like I know if I put this volley sales page on my website, like I can sell a bunch of them. It's just if I were to do that, what would I be giving up in exchange? And so
Yeah.
I'm like 50%. We'll see what happens.
I kind of love the time restricted aspect of it, specifically for people like you and me who are like hesitant on that, because it seems like a very low barrier to entry test, like I only sell half-hour packages or whatever, so I'm
Yeah.
never more than like 20 to 30 minutes from just canceling this entire thing and being like, I'm done. um
You should
but
definitely do it though.
I mean, I might. Here's
Yeah,
the
you should
here's
definitely do it.
the toss up for me is that I'm very much involved in this mental tennis game right now of like, what are the different ways that you could make money and what do you trade off for them? So I'm in a
Yeah.
very fortunate position to have a lot of really interesting work right now. And I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life, but I also feel like I don't have the time. And I've gotten a very good look at exactly like what it is when all these business books talk about, like, if you don't control your time, you're not really wealthy. I've experienced that firsthand recently. And it's changed the way that I think about like what I want to do. I'm not sure I'm ready to make a change yet, but I'm coming up on something. Like within the next couple of months, I'm going to be making a significant change about my approach to work and money. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but the money's no longer as much of a motivating factor because I've felt what it's like to not have the time, and the time is definitely where the wealth is for sure.
Yeah. There's nothing, I shouldn't say there's nothing worse. There's plenty of things worse, but like being wealthy and stressed is just, it's not as fun as it seems. Like
Yeah,
it's really not, like it sucks. Like it totally sucks. stress is the killer. That's why I always look at Warren Buffett, right? He eats like fucking McDonald's every day and he slams down like 5 gallons of Coke every day. And it's when I look at Warren Buffett, as much of like a health and nutrition freak that I am, I think, okay, well, stress is a bigger killer than all of it. And so if I can keep my stress down, then I feel like I'll live a long, hopefully happy and hopefully healthy life. So I'm with you, man. But I think I do think volley is changing the game a little bit for me with what that potentially look like.
Definitely. I think we were just having an interesting conversation about this last night too, about how there's never really enough upside on money to make you feel secure. Did I ever tell you about the time I was talking to a founder who had sold his company for $100 million and still needed to get a job?
Just because of his own personal like feelings?
No, because of his burn rate. And so this guy had sold the company for $100 million. And as you know, like that, there's more to that figure than most people realize. Like there's taxes and there's fees, and then
You don't put
sometimes
$100 million in
different.
your pocket.
Yeah, you'll roll the money into different investments to avoid different taxes and stuff. So it's not like he necessarily had 100 million cash sitting around. But we were talking, and he was kind of asking me about the newsletter industry in general, and what I thought of it, and what I thought of the opportunities there. And I could tell he was sort of searching for his next thing. And I asked him, I said, a lot of people, when they're trying to figure out what the next thing is, they'll do this exercise where they'll say, if money was no object, what would you spend your time on? And I said, you're in kind of a unique position because you're there, right? Like money's no object. So with that being the case, like, what do you think you want to spend your time on? And he goes, well, I wouldn't say money's no object. I have to make about $1 million a year in order to meet my burn rate. I was like, what?
His personal burn rate, you mean?
Yeah. And like people listening to this, some people will say that, like some people are just nodding their heads going like, yeah, I get it. Because if you have a family and you're in New York City and you got like one vacation house, maybe some staff, something like that, it's like, yeah, you can't just rest on a 9-figure exit. So that for me, that was like a turning point, right? Where I realized that there's never really enough upside to totally protect you against the need to have a job. It all comes from keeping your burn as low as possible while still enjoying a life that you feel is meaningful and where you feel like you have access to the things that you want access to.
Yeah, it's not what you make, it's what you spend.
Yeah. Cool, man. I have one more question. The map, is it bent? Did the map fall off the wall?
No, man, it's fucking like, okay, which side am I? So right here, you see how there's like a little ding?
Yeah.
Well, when we moved, what I did is I rolled my map up and then I taped it to the top of the bin, right? Of the can. And I guess it's because it was cold, it fell. And so there's like one tiny little dent. It's literally right there where I'm pointing my finger. And like this one little dent, it's just got some like crazy butterfly effect thing where it like leads to another dent, leads to another dent.
No.
It warped my whole map. Sucks, right?
All right. Well, if there's anybody listening to this that runs a map company, we're looking for sponsors.
Hook me up, man. I love maps. Like I have maps all over my house, all over my computer. I love maps. They're like my favorite thing. And yeah, I'm really bummed about it. So I can't buy a new one because my wife bought it for me and like I love it. And she was like really excited to buy it for me, so I can't fucking buy a new one, but I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, I guess now it's got character then. There's a story there. There's a story behind the dent. All right, man. This was fun. I will talk to you next week. Everybody listening, thanks for listening. Be sure to check out copybloggerpod.com. You can stay up to date on all of our episodes and sign up for the newsletter. You're going to get some cool stuff there if you do. And be sure to check out Please DM Me, which we actually meant to talk about today. I'm surprised we didn't even get to it.
It's okay. I have one more thing to do.
Oh, okay.
next week. Yeah, I have one more thing to do.
So check it out, but not till next week.
Well, you can check it out and you can buy it, by the way. If you go to plzdm.me, you can totally give us $9 a month to use it. But there's like another semi minimal but important update coming this week. So maybe wait till next week as well, but definitely buy it.
I think that's gonna be like the most reasonable ad read you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you next week.
See ya.